his job. Hyuna also offered to help him since she was already at a high level. When Hyunsung asked about her level, Hyuna proudly said she was at level 331 and ranked in the top 1000. She added that she was earning good money from IDEA, enough to pay for her treatment fees on her own. At that moment, Hyunsung realized that she had been secretly covering her rehabilitation and treatment expenses. Upset, Hyunsung lightly hit her on the head. While he understood that Hyuna was only concerned for him, he didn't like the idea of her doing things behind his back. For her part, Hyuna was also worried about him, knowing how hard he worked but couldn't use his own savings freely. That's why she decided to handle her medical bills on her own. Hyunsung then said that since he was starting his journey in IDEA, he would probably have a lot of questions for her about the game. Hyuna reassured him, saying she would help him, especially since the first half of the game could be quite challenging. Hyunsung's goal was to break into the top 1000 within 3 months. Hyuna asked him why he was so confident, given that she had been playing for a year already. She also inquired about his class. Hyunsung replied that he'd keep it a secret for now. Hyuna was dying to know what kind of character Hyunsung had, but he said he would only reveal it if he failed to reach the top 1000 within 3 months. Hyuna remarked that it wasn't going to be that easy and joked that he'd probably need her help within less than a month. Hyunsung smiled and told her to wait and see what would happen. Hyunsung then entered the capsule and began connecting to the IDEA game. Hyunsung observed the same view as last year, the familiar, empty starter village. He knew it was time to leave that place. Using his narcolepsy skill, he slept for 58 hours and 32 minutes, and even while sleeping, his stats increased. Although he was already aware of this, he was still surprised to see the improvements with his own eyes. It was truly amazing. In the center of the village stood the door that led to the tutorial, a door his father had once mentioned, saying, "The first button is always important." With that in mind, Hyunsung entered the door and teleported to the tutorial. The tutorial instructed him, choose his weapon, then attack and destroy the scarecrows. There was no time limit, and failure wasn't an option. Reward. The beginner's weapon he selected. Were all tutorials the same? Hyunsung foolishly expected it to be just another routine challenge. He began by selecting a weapon, something familiar to him. He chose the beginner's sword, as he had always favored swords when playing games in the past. Judging by how balanced his skills and stats were, his class was likely a hybrid, so it made sense that he opted for a sword. A tutorial scarecrow then appeared. However, for Hyunsung, it was too weak, and he quickly finished it off. You have cleared the quest. You will receive your reward. Hyunsung was surprised to see 4 messages appear after clearing a single tutorial. While he understood the title Monstrous Newbie that was awarded to him, the meaning of like a bystander was less clear. It was explained that the title was granted because he had left the tutorial uncleared for an entire year, a feat that, in its own way, reflected a form of professionalism. All of his rankings and titles could now be registered anonymously. This feature also caused his stats to increase, much to Hyunsung's satisfaction. The ability to remain anonymous was a huge advantage, as it would allow him to surprise Hyuna by playing as an unofficial ranker without revealing his identity. However, what Hyunsung appreciated the most was the effect of the Monstrous Newbie title, which boosted all experience points earned by 10%. For someone like him, who already had a 5 times experience point multiplier, this was the perfect bonus. He also received another title when his class changed, making him feel as if he had just won the lottery. A God rank title was truly remarkable. After reviewing all his titles, Hyunsung began to move once more. In IDEA, each server represented a different continent. The strongest country, and the one that developed the game, was Korea, the central nation. Hyunsung chose Dha Town, the most difficult and hostile of all the starter towns. The reason for his choice was its proximity to an orc village. Orcs were common monsters with levels ranging from 30 to slightly over 40, making them virtually impossible for beginners to defeat. Because of this, very few players ever visited the area. To Hyunsung, the best hunting ground in the game was one where no one else dared to go. In Dha Town, 2 guards named Hansen and Smith stood at their posts, bored from the lack of visitors to their village. Foreigners rarely, if ever, came to this place. The town was infamous for its unique monster, the highly acidic slime. Compared to other starter villages, Dha Town's easiest monster posed a significant challenge. The acidic slime's attacks were nearly impossible for beginners to avoid. Not only could its acid explosion severely damage you, but it would also melt your gear, and even your hair, if you got hit. On top of that, there was an orc village nearby, further discouraging players from venturing into the area. Suddenly, a flash of blue lightning struck from the sky, a teleportation technique. The two guards immediately recognized what that light meant. Villagers began to gather outside, curious about the unusual phenomenon. It had been a long time since a foreigner had visited Dha town. Hyunsung wondered why there was such a large crowd gathered, as if some sort of event was taking place. Moments later, the people began to disperse, visibly disappointed. They had expected something remarkable but were met with the sight of what appeared to be a weak and inexperienced individual. Even the two guards shared the crowd's sentiment, assuming he was just a clueless noob with hardly any experience. Though Hyunsung possessed an immortal body, the looks of pity directed at him didn't go unnoticed. He approached the guards and asked where he could find monsters. The guards informed him that the acid slimes could be found by following the main path straight ahead. However, they strongly advised against it, explaining that beginners didn't stand a chance against the slimes. Hyunsung simply nodded, replying that he already knew that, which was precisely why he came to this place. The guards, slightly exasperated, warned him that the slime's acid blasts were as fast as cannon fire and nearly impossible to dodge. They added that the acid could melt not just his equipment but even his hair if he was hit. Hyunsung thanked them for their warning and walked off with quiet determination. The guards felt a pang of sympathy for Hyunsung. He was so young, yet they assumed he must be dealing with hardships far greater than their own. Hyunsung began running into the forest. Not long after, he spotted an acid slime. He noted how difficult it would be for a beginner to hit its core, as it was incredibly small. For a novice, its speed truly would resemble cannon fire. However, Hyunsung wasn't a beginner. With precise movement, he drove his weapon straight into the slime's mouth, destroying it effortlessly. The system notified him of earned experience points, but he barely acknowledged it. It was far too easy for him. Deciding to push himself further, Hyunsung returned to the guards and asked them where the orc village was located. The guards stared at him in disbelief. The orc village? Why would you want to go there? Hyunsung replied matter-of-factly, to hunt orcs, of course. The guards exchanged uneasy glances. To them, his request sounded absurd. One of them, visibly concerned, cautioned him, "You shouldn't even think about something like that. You're too young. You shouldn't give up on life so easily," one of the guards said, his voice filled with concern. "You should try to live a little longer. Do your best. Even if it's not much, take this. Take mine too." To Hyunsung's surprise, the guards handed him some money. "I'm giving this to you because you remind me of my nephew," the guard added with a somber expression. "Forget about the acid slimes. Use this money to buy a scroll that will teleport you to another town. Start fresh there." Hyunsung stared at the money in his hands and received an unexpected notification. Title earned, Begging King. The system described the title. The true art of begging is when people give you money before you even ask for it. Hyunsung couldn't help but think, they could have just said no. But why treat someone like a beggar? Still, he resolved to accept whatever was given to him from now on. After leaving the guards behind, Hyunsung resumed his search for the orc village. As he ventured deeper into the forest, he noticed a massive footprint embedded in the ground. A smirk appeared on his face. "Looks like I'm in the right place." After a while, the orcs emerged. Hyunsung was surprised that they were red in color because orcs are usually green. The orcs started attacking him. They were fast, but their movements were large and included unnecessary actions. Hyunsung quickly defeated one of them and leveled up several times. He also received a DP, Dream Point, as an effect of his skill, Thanano's Dream. He chased down another orc and killed it. Once again, he leveled up several times and earned another DP. It was very easy for him to increase his level and earn DP. He planned to eliminate all the red orcs in the village. More red orcs arrived. He could handle them even without using skills. His plan was to wipe them out first before selecting a skill. Hyunsung began his attack and enjoyed the feast of experience points. Back in the town, a guard was feeling bored. His companion remarked that it was actually a good thing because it meant the people were safer, so he should be happy. Suddenly, both of them were startled when they heard a noise and saw movement in the grass. They assumed it was a red orc, but to their surprise, Hyunsung emerged. They asked him why he came out of the grass. They mentioned that he ignored their warning and